Let me just cover some things straight away before we jump in. So, number one, this movie is really not as bad as people say it is. At its worst, I think it's a mid movie in terms of writing and enjoyment because there's a difference between the two. Number two, the acting was great all around. Michael Keaton as Batman, Sasha Calle as Supergirl, Michael Shannon, and Ezra Miller especially. All great performances. Number three, all the Batman scenes were fire. I have no doubt that Andy Muschietti can deliver a good Batman movie because I think he can. I think he understands the character a lot more than others do. And finally, I'm sorry, but Iris West's actor cannot act. It's very stale, and you might as well be talking to a brick wall, to be very honest. Now let's jump in. So I'll be reviewing The Flash in like five categories. The plot, let's see. Sorry, maybe like four categories: the plot, cinematography, the Flash's abilities, and the characters. So let's start off with the first act. It starts off with Barry saving a collapsing building and the people in it, including babies, one of which he puts in a microwave. So I saw a video saying that people were outraged at this, and I really hope they're not because it was probably meant to be a joke and fit within what Barry could have done at the time. And later on, Barry gets a call from his dad in prison, and Barry's found footage of his dad that can vindicate him from the murder of Nora Allen. But it can't be used as evidence because Henry Allen's face didn't show. He was only wearing a cap on his head, and his head was pointed down. So it can't, vindicate him from the crime scene. So Barry travels to his childhood home, and he starts to run, eventually entering what the movie calls the Chrono Ball. Now, the Chrono Ball is a method of time travel through the Speed Force, where this ball forms around you, and you run backwards to go forward, to go further back in time. And I do love the uniqueness of the design and contrast with the show, because instead of, thinking where you want to go, which works fine, by the way, you instead see the most prominent memories of the time that you are traveling further back in. And Barry sees the memory of him saving the babies just a day prior. And before he can interfere, he just goes back, he returns back to the present. So he's telling Batfleck about this, and he's like, I can save your mom. He wants to save his mom and Bruce's parents also, which of course, who wouldn't take that deal? But Bruce is like, no, the stars make them who they are, and they shouldn't let their tragedies define who they are. And that Barry shouldn't focus on his past, but focus on his life and what he has ahead of him. And Barry later gets the thought to go through with it after talking with Iris, and it turns out that Nora Allen was murdered because she forgot a can of tomatoes while cooking and sent Henry Allen to go buy them while Barry stayed upstairs in his room. And the Reverse Flash did its thing. So Barry goes back in time, places a can of tomatoes in Nora Allen's cart in the shop, and she doesn't have to send Henry Allen out now. After Barry does that and he tries to go back to the present, right, to see his mom still alive, but he gets booted out of the Chrono Ball by this mysterious figure wearing like a black suit. He later finds out that he is not in the present, but instead in 2013, and there's an 18-year-old version of him who was supposed to get struck by lightning, but instead who was supposed to get struck by lightning. So they go to the lab, and the lightning strikes both Barrys, giving the younger version powers and taking away the older version's power. So that's kind of where the first act ends. The second act begins when older Barry sees that Zod is here to terraform Earth, like Man of Steel, and we find out that Barry was there on that day trying to save someone. And Barry decides to find the other Justice League members, but Aquaman isn't born yet, Victor isn't Cyborg, Wonder Woman isn't on Earth, and Superman isn't public yet. So he goes to look for Batman. Except this Batman is wearing a different face, older, and is retired. But with a little bit of encouragement, Keaton's Batman agrees to help Barry find Superman in Siberia, who turns out to be Supergirl instead. And they escape, and the younger Barry hears that the older Barry is here to prevent their mother's death. And older Barry gets his powers back, and that's the end of the second act. Now the third act is kind of where it gets very, rushed a little bit. Zod is now in the desert, trying to infiltrate, and Supergirl, Batman, and the Flashes go off to stop the invasion. We get a really cool sequence of fight scenes with Batman and the Flashes, and Supergirl doesn't really do much. And one thing actually hated was how weak she was. If I'm not wrong, I think that if you have sunlight, no matter how long you've been in captivity, it shouldn't make you weak at all. It should make you as strong as you possibly can be. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Um. So yeah. Anyway, Supergirl and Batman get killed a bunch of times after the Barrys try to time travel back in time to prevent their deaths, and this is when Barry starts realizing that the younger Barry is the same person that pushes him out of the Chrono Bowl at the beginning of the movie because he thinks that he can fix the inevitable points in time. But my biggest gripe with the movie is how Dark Flash is defeated as a villain. It doesn't really make sense like that. So Dark Flash prepares to attack Old Barry, but Young Barry jumps in the way, killing themselves. But it can't work that way because it is a loop. It's a time loop. If this Barry dies, then Dark Flash never sets Old Barry on that path to create him. And if he's never created, then Young Barry cannot exist to jump in the way, so Dark Flash cannot die. So that's the one problem I have with the movie, because it just goes against what they literally explained in the movie. Dark Flash already acknowledged that he is a paradox, but yet they kill him off by a decision that he couldn't possibly have made in his lifetime. Anyway, Barry now goes back, returns the can of tomatoes from the cart, and says one final goodbye to Nora, which was emotional, and returns to the present. His dad is eventually vindicated from the crime due to a slight timeline change where it shows his face, and the new Batman is now played by George Clooney, with possibly no reason for that because it's going to be rebooted, possibly. So, yeah, that's the end of the movie. Now, let's talk about some other things. So, the cinematography was really good in my opinion. Some weird angles here and there, but I love the camera distortion that they used when Barry was using his abilities, especially in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and also how the camera followed him running around the city. As for the characters, I really love this version of Supergirl, and it's a shame that the movie didn't do well because I think Sasha Kaya is very good for the role, and it would be a waste to call her for one movie that failed, and that's the end of her run. Uh, I do hope they can like either experiment with like blonde hair in the DCU and see how she does because she does seem like a good fit. And like I said earlier, all of Batman's scenes were spectacular. It was sick, especially Michael Keaton's Batman, even though he's like pushing what 60. So yeah, it was just dope. The cinematography and the choreography as well was really good. Now, for the biggest problem with this movie, according to people, the CGI, it was alright. It was not that bad. People are whining. Nah, I'm playing. It was kind of bad. I tell you the truth, I really didn't notice the CGI being that bad in the movie. And I'm not even gonna lie, it really does seem believable that it was done on purpose at times. Um, like the Nicolas Cage cameo, I know it looked very rubbery, and all the other cameos like Christopher Reeves, George Reeves as well. But like it really did seem on purpose because they were in the Speed Force and seeing all these timelines and stuff. It really did fit with the theme, in my opinion. And like I really don't think that they would have that CGI as on purpose. Like I mean, not on purpose, as if it was actually bad by mistake. It makes it a lot more believable that it was done on purpose, and I don't mind that because why not? It's the Speed Force. Customize it how you want, but I do agree it wasn't the best move. Seeing as like you have a controversial actor as the main lead, and the movie has been delayed, and it practically doesn't even matter. So yeah, it wasn't a good move to probably make the CGI purposefully bad, but it wasn't too bad in my opinion. It was all right throughout the whole movie. I also loved. I now actually Ezra Miller's running style is growing on me to be very honest because I think it makes the most sense, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But yeah, I enjoyed the CGI. It was all right. It wasn't too bad. Maybe it wasn't perfect though. There were parts that were kind of like, like because I watched Penguin's video on it, and he did mention that like other parts in the movie were kind of rubbery, even though they were out of the Speed Force. So there's no excuse for that, and I agree. Yeah, so I was going to talk about the Flash's abilities or inconsistencies, but I'll talk about that in another video. Please leave a like and subscribe, and let me know what you thought about the movie. But yeah, overall, this was a enjoyable movie for me. I really did enjoy it a little bit. It did seem that it could have been better and it could have been more. Um, and the writing was kind of mid. It wasn't the best, and there are a lot of inconsistencies, I feel. And yeah, it's a shame. I really do wish we could have like gotten a Flash sequel with another actor, and this didn't have to bomb at all. But it is what it is. So yeah, peace.